excuse me, my media sources from the internet.
Okay.
I just don't find much credibility in what I see on the TV with regards to this.
On the internet, are there particular sites you go to get your source of information?
Yeah, there's a few.
And do you recall what they are?
Sure, CNN,
Okay.
MSNBC.
Okay. Now, in addition to just reporting straight news, do they also sometimes give opinions about one way or the other about things?
They do, however, I don't take much value in that.
Okay. So I start off, I guess the question I would ask is, you would agree that the media, do you believe the media has a slant one way or the other?
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right. So you can separate all that stuff and just make your decision on what actually happens in the courtroom?
That's exactly it, yes.
Would that be true?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, whatever exposure you've had from the media, you agree that under the law that has to be kept outside the courtroom and you cannot let it in any way weigh in your decision?
That is correct. As I said, I don't find credibility unless it's from the courtroom.
So in other words, if you were to recall something, if you're sitting as a juror and you recalled something and it was different than what the witness said, you would have to rely on what the witness said as opposed to what you recall on TV or from the internet?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any issue about being able to do that?
No.
Okay. Did you have any discussions with any family or friends about this case?
After telling them it was my 6th day on the jury, you know, a lot of them tried, but
No, and I apologize. That wasn't a trick question. We know you're abiding by the court's instructions, but I appreciate you saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I meant, and I wasn't clear when I asked. My question is, prior to finding out you were going to be on the jury, going back to last year, have you had discussions, or did you have discussions with family or friends about the case?
some.
Okay.
Limited.
And did you express an opinion about the case to any family members or friends?
The only opinion that I expressed was that, gosh, how long is the media going to, you know, avalanche us with this, and for how long, you know?
Okay. So in terms, you felt it was an overexposure by the media, I guess?
Once again, yes.
Okay, all right. How about with people at work? Any discussions about the case with people at work? And I'm talking pre you finding out you were
Pre,
a juror.
yes. I'm a manager for my store.
And we know where it is, so you don't have to tell us where it is.
Yes. Thank you. And that's my policy is if it's not work related, it doesn't belong in the workplace. So that I follow that as well.
Okay. So let's talk about what you recall about the case. What do you remember about the case? And I know you've notated some things here already that we've had an opportunity to read. Other than what you've notated here, you mentioned that you had heard of George Zimmerman, you've heard of Trayvon Martin, and you mentioned he is a man on trial for a murder charge. He made calls from jail that have been scrutinized in local media for their hidden and coded nature.
That is correct.
All right. Anything else you can recall other than what you've noted here?
The only things I can recall is a story sensationalized about the Skittle Company,
Okay.
which I found very irrelevant and,
Okay.
and I ignored.
Tell me about that. Skittle Company.
I guess he had Skittles in his hands that night, and I
Who
guess
mean who?
the Trayvon
Okay,
Martin.
okay.
He had Skittles, and I guess then the Skittles company wanted to somehow capitalize on that.
Oh, okay.
That's as
All right.
far as the extent
You
is.
didn't think that was a good thing?
I thought this is shameless, and
Okay.
once again, it's
Sure.
just consumerism.
Sure. Anything else you can recall about facts about what happened, how Mr. Martin ended up dead?
I mean, I know he was wearing a hoodie,
Okay.
and I know it was raining that night.
Sure.
That's
Anything else you can recall in terms of leading up to, as you described, he's a man on trial for a murder charge, regarding Mr. Zimmerman being charged with murder? Anything you recall related to that?
the only thing I can recall is that, if I'm not mistaken, he turned himself in. He went down for questioning, and at a later time, that's when
Okay.
they took him in.
Any significance that you paid to any of that you told us so far?
None.
If you recall something, as you've notated already, or if you're sitting as a jury, you recall something, and it's different than what comes out of the witness stand? Would you rely on what comes out of the witness stand or what you recall?
Witness stand.
Okay. How about if you recall something, but it never comes out in the trial? In other words, you never hear it. Can you agree to completely disregard what you recall?
I would find it irrelevant. Yes,
Okay.
I'd disregard it.
Now, do you recall seeing any photographs related to this case?
No.
Okay. How about if there were any recordings of any type related to this case?
As I said, the only recording I was aware of was the one that was played on the radio, as a matter of fact. And
do you remember what that recording was of?
They slowed it down. They put some audio music to it to make it comical.
Okay.
You know.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, there was a lot of laughter on there. All I know is how much fun they seemed to get out of making fun of it. I didn't really pay much mind to the content.
You didn't find that was appropriate, or? Okay.
I just listen to them to make me laugh, and I don't find any other credibility other than that in them.
Do you remember any other recording of any type or any commentary? Let me before I ask you a compound question. Any other recordings of any time you remember?
I recall hearing snippets of a 911 call.
Okay. Any significance to that at all? Do you remember what the 911 call was about?
I recall some banter between Mr. Zimmerman and the 911 operator. But
Do you
again,
remember anything
I
of
don't.
what was said between either the 911 operator and Mr. Zimmerman?
I believe I recall the operator, saying, "We're on our way. We're on our way."
Okay.
No.
Anything other than that?
Other than that,
Okay. And you mentioned in your notation here on the form, the questionnaire, that he made calls from jail that have been scrutinized. Did you actually listen to calls, or was that just? And I'm not saying that, or did you actually hear that or report that there was calls made?
That was only pertaining to the audio played on the radio with which they distorted the sound and played music and did it in jest. I never paid attention to it in its original or clear form, I guess, if that helps.
Any other aspect of the case that you recall, either the case itself or anything that happened in terms of news conferences or other type of things associated with the case?
I live in Lake Mary, so I was aware of the traffic jams, I guess, when there were some protests taking place, but I didn't attend the protests. I didn't pay much mind to them.
And did you feel that that was improper in terms of your label or description of protest, or did you think that was improper or proper, or you just didn't?
As Americans, we have the right to,
Free
peaceful
speech.
protest, so, but...
You didn't place any significance one way or the other?
Other than it drastically elongated my time to get home to see my family after work, no.
Would that interfere with you being able to sit as a juror if you felt those protests or free speech was directed one way or the other?
Not at all.
Would you hold that against one side or the other?
No.
Okay. Anything else that you can recall about the case that stood out in your mind?
No, I'm afraid not.
Sure, that's all right. If assuming you weren't on a jury, and assuming a close friend of yours came from out of town, let's assume they were in a country where they had no knowledge of this case.
Sure.
And they came in, and you were allowed to talk about it because you weren't on the jury, and they told you, what's going on in Stanford, in June, and what's going on here? What is this case about? What would you tell them?
Well, other than, hey, let's wait and find out, I'd basically fill them in on, there was a shooting, and essentially there's going to be a hearing, and they're going to find out, what happened.
And if that friend was really curious and said, shooting, what was the shooting about? What would you tell them?
I'd say let me direct you to any one of the numerous media sources. Feel free to take your pick. It's a needle in a haystack.
Sure. Okay. As best you can recall from the exposure you had, did you form an opinion, not the ultimate opinion in terms of, I know you stated you have not formed an opinion as to guilt or innocence. Did you, based on the media, did they express any facts more about other than it was a shooting? What it was related to or anything like that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Sure, and I apologize. I was trying to ask you a question without feeding you the answer.
Sure.
So we're not allowed to give you information and say, oh, by the way, you didn't hear about this. do you remember any more detail in this media recounts or about the shooting other than it was a shooting? Do you remember anything about more what led up to the shooting or circumstances related to the shooting?
Other than what I mentioned about it being a rainy night, hoodie,
Okay.
you know, I don't recall anything else on that.
Sure. And I gather, you know, as you realize by this time that we ask people to serve as jurors, we ask them to take time from their lives and jobs, etc. We know it's an inconvenience. And we know that a lot of people, in terms of having to take time, it's a hardship, but not an insurmountable hardship. My question is, the judges, we are estimating as best we can that the jury process, once we pick a jury, the trial itself may last anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And we also, the court has made a decision, because we don't want the jury to be exposed in terms of contact from the media, that the jury will be sequestered. Okay. So your contact with outsiders, family, et cetera, will be severely limited.
Okay.
Do you understand that? And I gather by your answer that even though that may be something that would not be ideal, it would not be an insurmountable hardship. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would not be ideal, but far from insurmountable.
Okay. If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Amen.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Mara.
Afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. My name is Mark O'Mara. I represent George Zimmerman, who's seated in the middle. Don West on the far side is my co-counsel, Robert Hirschhorn, is helping out on this stage. And has it sort of become apparent to you what we're doing right now, which is just to find out what we call pretrial publicity, basically just what information you know about the case as you come into the courtroom. So any of my questions are going to sort of be focused on that, as will Mr. Delaronde's, okay?
Understood.
And it sounds as though you come to us with a healthy skepticism about media. Would that be accurate?
Yes, if I may explain. I'm
Sure.
a father of 3, and in my opinion, the news is all negative. And we're a blended family, and so anything that I can do to keep the negativity out of the house, I'm up for. And I just feel that constant exposure to this negativity that the media feeds, you know, through the television and radio and what have you, it's just not a way to build a family, and I choose not to allow it in the home.
Okay. Are the children of age where you can talk to them about the exposure they may have and the same concerns with the media?
Certainly, the 10, 12, my youngest is under 1 year age, so not yet.
And to the extent that you've heard about this case, I think you've explained it in response to some questions, which is some along the way. Initially, it would fit more in the beginning when it sort of hit, or?
Could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Sure. Did you hear, I thought, and I might be wrong, that you had said that you had heard about this case when it first happened, and you heard about it more back then and sort of got over it or past it after the initial, I think you said, avalanche.
Correct. That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay. Back then, if you could just give me a little bit more insight as to when it first came across to you. Say, what was the first thing that you heard about this case when you first heard about it?
I'll do my best. I believe I was watching, just one of the TV shows that we like, that we frequent, and then we saw, you know, breaking news, you know, from one of the local sources. Well, when I saw that, I said, well, let's see what else is on. And it appeared as though it was on every channel. So we took a moment, you know, took in what we could, and says, all right, well, looks like there's going to be another drawn-out case the local media is going to absolutely hit us with, so I'm just going to put on something different. Other than that, as I said, I do check CNN, and, you know, the only thing that I can recall is they put up a computer-generated, you know, what might have happened. Also, which I don't take much stock in.
Okay. Was that a computer animation?
It was like an animation.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do you recall what that animation, what it presented?
Gosh, they showed images of. You know, of a rainy night. They showed images of the 911 operator speaking on the phone, and then you know, Mr. Zimmerman on the phone, and you know, they showed streets, but
Okay.
I can't recall, or at that time really did I find any of that relevant. I wasn't very taken by the cases. Most of my other peers have.
Okay. Do you recall the perspective that animation gave on how the interaction between the two, George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, actually occurred that led to the shooting?
Between Trayvon Martin and Mr. Zimmerman?
In that animation, yes.
I didn't finish watching the animation because I just felt that this was, what credibility does this have? But I do recall the animation showing that, it showed Mr. Zimmerman's character coming from behind and approaching, and at that point it said, this is what we believe to have happened. At that point, their credibility in my eyes is next to nothing, and I don't have time to waste on that.
And it sounds like the answer to this question is obvious, but certainly if what you heard, if you were sitting on the jury, you would listen to witnesses from the witness stand and see evidence presented. If that was inconsistent with this animation, this cartoon, which would you pay attention to?
I would certainly go with what's on the witness.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess the concern that we really try to address is those subtleties that happen from the media, whether it's over time or something as precise as a cartoon, whether or not that would have some effect on you and how you look at the case. So whether or not you have some bias or prejudice that you walk into the courtroom with based upon your media exposure.
I guess no, because what I mean by I guess is that so many of my friends are, very tied up into things like this, past very hyped cases, OJ, what have you, and I see what it does to their lives, and it just consumes them, and that's the last thing I want for myself, for my family, so I just choose not to follow that. I'm a sports nut, to be honest, and if it's not about football, then I really don't have much interest. Sorry.
Well, how about those conversations with those friends who have taken a position on this case? Tell me about that.
Maybe I have 6 that say one way, a half dozen that say the other, and you tell, you know what, I really don't have time to waste on this conversation. So. Okay.
Is it, are you sort of the ilk that were you to sit on this jury, make a decision, sounds like it's going to controvert or conflict with at least 6 of your friends' predispositions. Sure. Any concern that you would have with acknowledging your verdict and still moving forward with your friends, general public, anything?
I wouldn't have a problem with that. As I said, I don't put a lot of stock into these media-hyped cases as they do, and, well, if that's something to lose a friend over, something like this, then so be it. I just don't have time for that.
From what you've heard and seen in the media, have you noticed sort of a social or political pressure that's been placed on this case?
Certainly. It's a very high-profile case. It seems that it's got the attention of quite a lot of different people of varying opinions, and that's my opinion on the matter.
Tell me what you think those pressures are.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of folks are probably saying, you should go this way, and then a lot of other folks are saying, well, no, you should go the other way. And to be frank, everyone has an opinion, and they all stink. So, well, what does that matter to me?
I guess the only reason why it might matter to us is if you were to allow those pressures, whatever they are, that are outside the courtroom to affect how you would act inside the courtroom, particularly with how you would reach a verdict.
I think as a father I can say that, I've always taught my children that, you do what you believe in, and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. At the end of the day, you're the person that, you need to answer to, and anyone else, higher power that you believe in, and that's it. No one else matters, and I live by that.
You're going to bring that philosophy to our jury?
If I'm called to do so, yes.
Thanks. No further questions, Ron. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. So just remain seated for one moment. Counsel, when you're ready, approach. against juror I-44, any strikes for cause by the state,
No, Your Honor.
by the defense?
No, thank you.
Okay, where that leaves us is with R40, I believe, am I correct? What I would like to do before I really Mr. Zimmerman, again, I'm going to ask you, you've been here today, and you've had an opportunity previously to look at the juror questionnaires, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you heard the individual examination of the potential jurors today.
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you have an opportunity to talk to your attorneys about their decisions that they made on these prospective jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you in agreement with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the other thing is, and this is for both sides, counsel for both sides have agreed that when we got to 40 prospective jurors, that we would begin our regular voir dire examination. And we have those 40, and I'm going to list them to make sure that these are 40 people that are acceptable to you for the pre-qualification. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I have a moment?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, state ready, because I'm going to ask if this is acceptable to the state also. Juror B12, B29, B76, B7, B35, B37, B51, B86, E6, E40, E54, E73, M75, B61, B72, E22, E13, E28, K80, K95, P67, that's P as in Paul, G14, G29, G47, G63, G66, G81, H6, H7, H18, H29, H35, H81, H69, H86, I5, I19, I24, I33, and I44. Is that acceptable to the state?
It is, Your Honor, subject to the court's rulings, obviously, we gave in this. Yes, it is.
Okay, is this acceptable to the defense?
I may have written down I-14 instead of I-19. I just want to confirm that if I might.
It's I-19.
Sorry, I-19.
I-19?
Yes.
And that's
my
what I
mistake,
said?
not yours.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is that acceptable to the defense?
Yes, we of course had made some argument at the bench, and those are reserved, but short of that, yes.
Okay, acceptable to you with those caveat by Mr. O'Mara?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Okay, can we bring in the ones that we had accepted today? And we'll first bring in the three that you have in the back. I'm going to is it okay to dismiss them?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, bring them and I'll dismiss them.
On 46, 49, 54, present.
Please be seated. I bet you think I'm going to tell you you have to come back tomorrow. I'm not. To let you know that you are hereby excused from your jury summons and jury service, but I wanted to thank you on behalf of all the participants in the court for your incredible patience during this process. Without your willingness to sit here and wait for the process to begin, we would not be able to do our job. So I want to thank you very much. You are hereby dismissed. Deputies will help you out. Thank you. And then can I get the others in? Bobby?
Yes, ma'am. Jurors are present, Your Honor.
Please be seated, and I'm just going to make sure I have everybody here that I expect. So if I call your juror number, please raise your hand. H81, H69, H86, I5, I19, I24, I33, and I44. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin what we call our regular jury selection tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So you will need to be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. At that time, if you counted, you could see there's 30 seats in the box. We're going to put 30 of you in the box here, and the attorneys are going to begin what we call our regular voir dire or jury selection process. So if you'll be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the deputies will tell you where they would like you to meet. Of course, I'm going to give you my instructions, and I'm going to ask if you will agree to abide by them. During the overnight recess, you are not to read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case. Do I have your assurances that you will abide by those instructions? You're not to discuss the case amongst yourselves nor with anybody else. That includes people at home, friends, family, co-workers, or anybody at all. If they try to talk to you about the case, please tell them that you cannot and ask them to leave. If they insist, please report it to the court deputy. Do I have your assurance that you'll abide by these instructions? You're not to use any type of electronic device to get on the internet to do any independent research about the case, people, places, things, terminology. Do I have your assurances that you will abide by those instructions? Yes. And you're not to read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case. Do I have your assurance that you will abide by those instructions? Yes. And with that, you're excused for the evening. Follow Deputy Jarvis. We'll see you at 9 a.m. Please be seated. Mr. West, last night when we were recessing, you had indicated that there were some exhibits that you, a housekeeping matter, wanted to have entered. Do you want to wait until tomorrow, or are you prepared to did you show some of them to Mr. Manti? I had asked you if you would show them to him, and we could go over that today, or you're not prepared to do that right now? Okay, we could do that. That's fine. It was a late night last night. We could do that tomorrow. Is there anything else that we need to take up before we recess for the day?
I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing for the next couple of days as well. Maybe, I don't know if that's a conversation we can have at the bench or just something. I'm just trying to see where we are. Today's Tuesday. We're doing some general tomorrow. We have Fry tomorrow.
At 4 o'clock at Fry. Mm-hmm.
We might have, I don't know what, I'm just trying to see where we're going.
Okay, the court's intention, like I told these prospective jurors, is to begin the regular voir dire tomorrow. The 30 people will be put in the box, and we'll begin our regular voir dire. We'll see where that goes. No matter where we are at that time, we will break about 3:45, so we could get ready for the next witness in the Fry hearing. And then if we need to continue with jury selection on Thursday, we will do that. Was there something else that, is that? Yes, you may approach. Thank you, Susan. Court is in recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Or part Hispanic. This guy, the last guy, looked partly almost Arab. And then there was that other guy who I thought could have been Puerto Rican, but he said he went to Kuwait. He came from Kuwait.
He was Hispanic.
Yeah, I think he just
lived.
worked over there. Yeah, I think he just was.
He said he was from Puerto Rico, born in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, at one point he said something about Puerto Rico too. He's Hispanic for sure. His parents were.
Right.
He said he is Hispanic for sure. Even though he said he was from Kuwait. But this last guy, he had a like I was telling you, he had a he looked like an Arab sheik. Without the picture. Like this, almost like the ZZ Top guy that was dismissed.
No,
yesterday.
let me check.
And the night before he got a face cap. The Sigmund Freud
See?
he had a Sigmund Freud little goatee right after he left.
Okay, that's a good idea. Okay. I will let her know and we'll take care of that. Nothing scheduled as of this moment. All right, no problem. Bye-bye.
Well, here's the thing is, no laptops, so you're forced to bring an iPad, fresh, I can't control. Yeah, gosh, we should have a Siri lesson.
Welcome,
Making
Helen.
sure you turn on Siri. It's not fair, I couldn't believe
Well,
it.
but it's your
I
company
was
now,
hoping nobody put
right?
it.
It's your whole company.
No.
Or organization.
Just him, I just want to.
We only had.
I didn't realize you were the two.
No, I'm not, I'm just filling in for.
No, I had a reporter had to run out. So.
Oh, gotcha.
No, I'm New York only.
Yeah, no, that's why
I just don't have a designated seat, so I just come low.
Right.
I like it better down here, to tell you the truth. When it's a George, or you did that, let me be. I'm right here.
Right.
And I can type, I can be in my
It's free.
computer.
For your,
Yeah, there's no restrictions, I can drink, I can eat, I can type.
yeah, you know what?
So are you gonna-
Talks me.
so are you
What's
gonna-
that? Did you get back at the end of the day?
Yeah,
We went
well,
through-
I'll just
we
let
you
went
know.
through this topic.
Yeah, just put it on my phone.
What?
It's not if it's ultimately the judge's decision.
Well, what irks me is this morning, somebody's, I forgot what it was.
There
It's one of
were
those
three
stories.
series and then the local channel 6.
But someone this morning didn't own up to it. As soon as mine went off, I was like, booby.
I did too, and Manisha and I both went, I couldn't believe it was yours. Oh, but I saw that you didn't even do it. It's your dad made you do it or something, or you written something.
I was actually doing something legitimate. I was looking to see if there were any new files that had been motioned while we were there. So,
That Siri thing is dangerous, man.
I don't think I've ever turned mine on. See, this is, my work phone is the iPhone, and I hate the iPhone, actually, I like my Galaxy better.
I
That's
don't
what
have the
use.
iPhone without the Siri, I don't have the Siri 4S, I did the
Oh,
4, so I
okay.
don't have anybody talking to me.
you're lucky.
I didn't want it.
So you just put these
I
up
didn't
there,
want it.
right?
Yeah, computer option.
Thank you.
So, anyway.
And once the talk starts, I think I'll be down here too, you don't have to listen. I mean, as long as you can
Well,
listen.
that's what I just said, and the ones that.
Oh, wait, they don't have a clock down here for us though, for TV people.
There's a clock right there.
Well, but it has the digital time, which helps put our time code back at the station and pull time back if we want.
We have a digital clock right here. Oh, it's just off right now. But we have this